The beginner's guide to financing your house flip. That's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about the costs associated with making a flip happen. We're talking about who covers it. We're going to talk about how to get 100% financing. All those things are things that we're going to be talking about. So let's start by going through this and talking about the cost associated with doing flips, okay? What does it really cost to make a flip happen? And first off, I'm gonna talk about the acquisition price. This is simply how much you are paying or buying the property for. That's your acquisition price. Next, you're gonna have like closing costs when you buy it. You'll also have closing costs when you sell it, but we're just talking about the buying right now. So you're gonna have title insurance and fees. You're gonna have some attorney fees. You're gonna have some loan origination fees. There's gonna be some lender fees involved with that, as well as hazard insurance to protect the property. Those are all things you're gonna be paying as part of this purchase. Next thing we're going to jump into is what are called rehab costs. This is the amount of money you're going to spend to increase the value of the property. When you think about a fix and flip, most people don't think of it this way, but it's called value add. Okay. The concept is I'm buying the property, I'm adding value to that property, and then I'm going to sell that for a profit is the goal, because I'm adding value to that property through remodeling, through maybe putting another bathroom in downstairs if it didn't have one. And we're not talking about construction. We're talking about remodeling, okay? You're also gonna have the interest expense. Every day that loan's out, it costs more money, and the time that loan is out adds up. Then we jump into like agent fees. This is paid when you sell the property, so you don't have to pay that just when you list it, but when you sell the property, that's actually when you are going to have to pay those. It comes out of the proceeds of your sale. And then next we get into title fees. You're gonna pay title fees actually as a seller. Now, some are paid up front, some are paid along the way, and some are paid at the time of resale. So we've talked about all the different costs here. Now let's talk about when they're actually paid. So upfront costs, your acquisition, your rehab, your closing costs, your lender costs are all going to be upfront, as well as your hazard insurance. Like all that has to happen at the time of closing. All those are gonna be there. Okay. One way or another, these costs have to get paid. So here's an example. Acquisition's $150,000, the rehab's $50,000, the cost is $5,000, lender costs are $10,000, hazard insurance, it's $217,000. So whether you're having a lender come up with some or most or all of that, or you're coming up with some and the lender's coming up with some way to make this deal happen, $217,000 is gonna have to find itself to the closing attorney or title company, either through a combination of your money or a combination of lender's money to make that deal happen. So on one way or another, you've got to come up with that. So you'll need to find a way to come up with that $217,000 to make that deal happen. Could be a combination. In most cases, the buyers will put 20 to 35% down is what a lot of lenders require. They also pay for the rehab costs, the closing costs, the lender's costs, the hazard insurance. That's typically all paid by the buyer in most cases. That would be around $97,000. The struggle that I have with this is most people don't have $97,000. They don't have that kind of cash. So how can we make this more accessible to people? So it's important, the more money you can bring into a deal, the lower your costs will be, okay? The more money you bring, the lower your costs will be, meaning more of your money, you'll actually get a better return on it because you'll have a higher profit margin because you're paying less in interest, okay? And fees and everything else like that. The more deals you'll be able to do as well, the less money you can bring to a deal, you have to find lower risk deals. If you can't put down the $97,000, you have to get a lower risk deal. Your costs are going to be higher and your profit is going to be lower. So you have to realize that. Now, if you've got extra money, you can basically do some base hit deals that normally somebody that needs 100% financing is not going to be able to do, where the people that need the 100% financing are looking for more the home run deals because they need all those things included, which means they're going to have to find more properties. And in finding those more properties, they're going to turn away some of those that may be good deals. And that's just the reality of the situation. This doesn't mean you shouldn't get started. It means you need to have a realistic expectations, okay? The less money you can put into a deal, the more risk the lender is taking. So less money, more risk to the lender, thus the better deal you need to actually find for them to finance more money, which is how that 100% works. The more money you can put into that deal, the lender's risk goes down and you're able to do a deal with not as high of profit margins, okay? This is where a lot of new real estate investors get confused. They're just like, what? This doesn't make sense to me. Let's break this down. If you have the money, put the money into it. You'll make more money. Your overall cost of funds will go down. You'll be able to do more deals. But what if you don't have the money to get started? What do you do in that situation? Well, there's a couple things. You need to find a way to get 100% financing. And this is not just for the purchase, it's for the purchase, the rehab, the closing costs, the lender's fees, hazard insurance. It's for all of those things. Now, you could use a home equity loan. You could tap into a home equity against your home line of credit, or get one, or if you have one, you could use that. And that charges you interest only when you're using it. So when you pull the money out is when you're actually paying that. And you can use it for anything like marketing or repairs. And lower your interest rate overall. Your combined interest rate will be lower if you bring some. It can be used for 100% of the purchase and repairs, plus your home equity, plus the hard money can do that. You can do a combination to lower those overall cost of funds. And it's easier to do good deals if you have access to that money rather than have to wait for home run deals. If you need everything financed as 100% financing, you're gonna have to find a home run deal. That's what it comes down to. The other thing you can do is use your 401k, your IRA, your retirement. You can actually borrow against your retirement. You're really borrowing from yourself. You do have to pay yourself back the retirement account, and typically you have to pay back at some interest rate as well. So you could borrow that money, you could use it, and then you could pay it back when the property sells. That's something you've got to get with your administrator on, that administers your 401k or IRA or whatever that case is, and get the details on borrowing. If you have a self-directed retirement, it can be very different than actually doing a loan. This is where your retirement actually buys the property. Your retirement fund is actually going to take care of that, and all the profits are going to go in there. You have to be careful. There's some self-dealing laws you've got to make sure that you don't get yourself into, which is why you want to work with some professionals. Your retirement account owns that deal, makes the profit goes in there. Now, the other thing you can do is you can use hard money plus your 401k. Because you're gonna say, I don't have enough money in my 401k, maybe I have $40,000 in there, maybe I can borrow 20,000 of that or 30,000 of that. How am I gonna come up with the other 100? Well, you can use your hard money plus your 401k to do that. That's called combination to make the full project cost. This also lowers your overall cost of funds and makes it easier than just having to do what we call home run deals. Great for taxes. You're not taxed on the money. It all goes into your retirement account, which is really cool if you're doing the whole deal within there. You may have to move money into a self-directed retirement account, and that's a process and something you need to start working on now. But most accounts don't let you just do straight up self-directed. So you've got to decide if that's something that you're going to be using. Next thing we want to talk about here is self-directed retirements plus hard money. Use as much as you can from retirement and make up the rest with hard money. So the less you can use in hard money, the greater your profit margins are going to be, the lower overall cost of funds are going to be there. And your ability to do a deal, you may be able to do something that you couldn't get 100% financing on, but you've got a deal that you could make it happen because you've got alternative funds, not just relying on the lender and waiting for the home run deal. Also, seller financing. The seller actually becomes a lender. The seller uses the equity in their home to be the lender, and there's many ways to do this. You can get hard money and seller financing. You can combine that. For example, say the seller wanted $100,000. The hard money lender can do $90,000. The seller could make a note with you for $10,000, and you could pay him that $10,000 maybe plus some interest when you actually sell the property. Is a great way to do it. Or you can make monthly payments along the way if you want to. It just depends on what your exit strategy is and what your plans are with that. Okay, wholesaling. Look up a deal and sell the contract with an assignment. This basically means you find a deal and you assign it. You do what's called a double close, a transactional close. You take title and you close with the new funds. It's a great way to do little to no cash deals, okay? Gap financing is another way. You get a company or an individual to cover the gap. It's the difference between what your lender can get, what you can come up with, and what you need. So that's a great way to do this. It's a combination typically with hard money as well. But keep in mind, you can also be a gap funder for other people's deal. if they may be short on cash, where you can come in and say, hey, I've got some money, so I can be a funder for someone else's. Now, a deal partner, we can talk about debt. You can find a partner that has cash or has good credit. Good credit, it turns it into cash. You can use credit card financing. You can use credit to lower your overall project costs, and you can cover 100% of the deal or a combination of that plus hard money. So there's lots of ways to do this. You've got to be creative in most cases, because it's either you've got to find a home run deal, or you've got to find a base hit deal and find another way to come up with some money. It could be your own, it could be some of these different ways. Great for your partner. They get a return by doing no work at all. Just using their credit card as an asset, they can pull some of that money, lazy money, and get it to work. And you set an interest rate for being a lender. You can pay them monthly, you can pay once the property sells, you can structure that however you want to. Now, another thing you can do is bring in a deal partner for equity, not for debt. Debt is what we were just talking about, but we can bring them in for equity. So rather than getting a set interest rate, yeah, we'll pay you 10% or 5% or whatever, you get your money back plus a percentage of the profits, okay? So that can be a way to do that. Now, they're taking on more risk, because if you don't make enough to pay them, they are eating it. Whereas when you sign for the debt, you are responsible for it and responsible for paying them back. This can be combined with hard money as well with a deal partner. So that can be a great way to find them. The other thing you can do is simply just go renegotiate with the seller. Get the purchase price to come down. This could make the difference between the hard money can give you and what you actually need. Now, the hard money alone, all of this has to fit into the hard money alone. It's harder to make this deal happen. It's doable, we do them, but you have to find a really, really good deal, or like I say, a home run deal. The other thing you can look at doing is simply changing your investment strategy. One of the things that we just launched beginning of the year is what are called land flips. And with land flips, you actually can buy a piece of land and sell that piece of land, not have to do construction. It's lower dollar amounts. And so that's a great way to cut your teeth. It's the way my boys are going to be getting started here in real estate in the next few years as they get a little older, 11 and 12 right now. So, but we're getting there. We're talking about it. Much less cost, and there is no construction. If you're interested at all in this, you can go to in land flipping. Check us out at DoHardMoney.com/land, and you can get more information about our land investing. Now, to give a quick recap, what you've learned today: the costs associated with making a deal happen. There's the acquisition price, there's the closing costs, the purchase, the rehab, the interest expense, the agent fees, and the title fees. Buyers typically have to put 20 to 35% down on the purchase, and they also have to pay for closing costs, lender, hazard. However, there are some ways around that. The more money you can bring to a deal, the less you will get charged, the more money you will actually make. But there are lots of financing options. We've talked about those, like getting a home equity plus hard money, 401k, self-directed, seller finance, wholesaling, gap financing, a deal partner, debt, equity, renegotiating with a seller, hard money alone, and changing your investment strategy.